Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you download the app and rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Don't forget to subscribe to Candid Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. And you can follow what we do on that channel. Now on CFL Talk, as usual, David Morassutti. David, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing swell.
Oh, it was an interesting evening last night. We were there for the Argo game. Going in, I'm going to say this with total sincerity. Argos historically, after winning a championship, don't come up with a great game, their first game or a season to follow that game. They really did break the mold, and this is the promise that Pinball Clemens made, that this would be a team that would be consistently good. None of that and he was specific when he joined the Argos, rejoined the Argos, I should say. He said, "We're not going to do that thing where we win a championship and then are terrible following that championship." So, he knows the history here, and the team did what it needed to do to beat a team that was fired up coming into BMO Field, being the Hamilton Tiger Cats, to basically give the Argos a really hard time. You start from what I talked about and give us your take on all those issues and how you see them.
I mean, yeah, like I remember in 2018 when the Argos were defending their Grey Cup title from 2017, and that might have been the worst performance I had ever seen from a football team coming into their home opener. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they also had a week off.
Yeah, same thing.
That they had the week one bye. Like the CFL schedule makers have a tough job to do because they have to coordinate different,
Odd teams.
an odd number of teams, venue availabilities, TV schedules. We don't know the full story that goes into every schedule. But yeah, like this one here, I said to you when we were driving together to the game because we went down together. I said I have a good feeling this is going to be a not so bad crowd because of how busy the traffic was getting to the stadium. There are days where it's a little too easy, and we left a little bit later than we wanted to, but I said it's like the traffic in Toronto is terrible, but you can tell when the traffic is going to a certain area that you know what, we're in for a better crowd. And I thought the crowd, yeah, we want to get in if we want to get into the crowd part first. Um, I thought it was not a bad number, but
15,
I would have
9,
liked to have seen a
6,
better
7.
number.
15,967 was the number.
I had to be 67 at the end of it, right, Frank?
Of course it did.
The Toronto, it's a famous number of Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And 15,000 years ago, that's when that happened. Yeah. Carry on. The fans, we can't claim this to be a disappointing crowd
No,
for one reason. We have seen far worse crowds in the immediate past.
there were 4,000, around 4,000 less, 3 to 4,000 less at last year's home opener.
So
Had 12,000, I'm pretty sure.
yeah. Well, there was 12,000, 10,000, and I think last year they snuck below 10,000.
They had a couple of games they had a game definitely with 9,000. I think BC was actually that game.
Yeah. And I don't want to mention this out of negativity. We're looking at it from the positive side. So please don't consider this us making a negative response to the Argos and their attendance. This is a positive response because the reality is 16,000, well, another what? 33. Another 33 people would have made it 16,000. 16,000 for opening day today, looking back. Knowing what it could have been is a good start. For CFL teams to be successful, they need around, from what I understand, they need the low 20s to be profitable.
Mhm.
And therefore, the Argos are not, if it's true, if that fact is true, they're not profitable to a degree they need to be to be self-sufficient. In other words, not eat away at MLSC money. Now, it doesn't matter that they have a lot of money, folks. That's not the point. The point is the organization, the game, the CFL in Toronto can be better. And we're seeing a hint of at least a little bit of a bounce back from last year. A little bit. I expect more. And I expect more because of the team and their ability to, again, not do what they've done in the past, follow up a great, marketable season with a terrible season. They have a great season this year. I think the attendance will start to climb up. I believe, and I think you do too, and I know a lot of fans do, that guy wearing number 12 can be a magnet and an entertaining kind of quarterback for the fans of Toronto to go follow and enjoy watching and wondering what, you know, Chad Kelly will do next, because he had a great start to his career as a starting quarterback with the Canadian Football League's Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, I mean, like think of it this way. I think a lot of people are comparing what's happening on BC to what's
Right.
happening in Toronto. I think kind of similar situations, right? A lot of like BC last year, they went in with Nathan Rourke. A lot of questions at that quarterback position. Weren't sure how good the roster was actually going to be, and then they were able to sell, a really good number for their home opener. The little difference was they also had a really good band as the concert, I think, going into that game,
Yes.
right? And they did the same thing this year again. That's probably where I'm a little disappointed, I would say. You're going into your 150th year. If you're raising your banner, why not? And it's a Sunday evening. Chances are you could probably get people to come earlier if you had something to kind of draw people in right off the hop, right? Have one of those.
Hype. You're
Yeah,
talking about hype.
like
And
we're
that's
we're,
what they're
we're
doing in
seeing we're
BC.
seeing it now. It's not enough to talk about the history of the Argos, the success on the field. You need something else to draw it in. And what disappoints me in twofold with MLSC about this is, one, you have the ability to reach into your other teams a little bit here. The Raptors aren't playing, the Leafs aren't playing. TFC, they're in the middle of their season. You're not going to be able to rely on them. And what I'm saying here is invite one of the players from the team to come to the game, get them to help promote the Argos a little bit here, because that will bring in a different crowd. Like the fans that I saw there were some new. I was seeing on Twitter a lot of new faces where there are not new people were going for the game, but you can definitely tell that there was a lack of just that. The people who probably never went to a CFL game before, not enough of those people were at that game. If you have, you know, like Scotty Barnes, I remember he wore an Argonauts t-shirt, and they did a good job to kind of promote that he did that. Like, why not have Scotty Barnes at the game? Why not? I know Mitch Marner was in the Formula One this weekend, so he couldn't have been at the home opener, but Mitch Marner's been at Argo games. Where's the promotion of that, right? You have to use that because you have to find a way to relate to a different type of fan that you're trying to bring to the game. And that's where it was a little disappointing in that regard. And also, this was done on Father's Day, Sunday evening. I know a lot of families do not want to deal with bringing their kids to a Sunday evening sort of game because it's a school day. It's a late one. Like we didn't. What time did we leave, Frank? We got home just before quarter to. I mean, we stayed behind because
Your place. Yeah.
we had to do the locker rooms and stuff. So we're there 11:30. Probably not home until 11:45. Stuff like that. Think of a family that has a long drive home in a lot of these cases, or has to take transit home. They're not getting home until 11:30. That's really tough to do on a week, on a night where these kids got to get ready for school the next day and all those things. So there's got to be a better semblance of understanding what type of fan you want to bring in and catering a little bit to that fan. You have to in this case. And I think that's something that hasn't really fully sunk in yet, in my opinion.
I'll I'll say this part, and then uh, I think we'll have done what we need to do. Comparing the BC experience with the Toronto experience. um, famous person, TV star, movie star as well, because he did a football movie too. So on any given Sunday, he was a part of that, and a TV star, right, and a musician as well. So he did some music, and they they entertained in a way that I think the Argos should as well. I just can't believe that Toronto, the town of Toronto, can't find some sort of musical group that could be convinced for a reasonable financial amount to play there as well. I don't understand.
And they've done
There's a
it
playbook
before.
out there. There's a playbook out there. BC has a proven playbook. TSN kicked in too by having, they were there for 2 days. The panel, right? They did the game before the BC game, and then they did the BC game on Saturday. So they did the Edmonton game, and Winnipeg from BC. Their panel was there. They hyped the game there. Now, I guess if I'm going to be the devil's advocate, having said what I just said, raise the entertainment. Someone else might say, well, that won't change anything in Toronto. But we don't know if they don't try. We don't know what the result will be if they don't try. They've got to raise the hype level of the Argo games. I understand the hype of having a balloon with a banner in it saying they're the 2022 champions. I get that. That's awesome. That was a wonderful moment to have that banner raised in the way that it was raised on the bottom of a balloon. It was awesome. And having that was great. The giveaway of the
Rings.
rings, fantastic, great stuff. But I still think they got to try and make it a party. Football, I was very impressed when we went into the parking lot and saw all the different tailgating that was going on. It wasn't normally it's up against the fence by the lakeshore, right? But they were indiscriminate through the whole parking lot. Toronto and Hamilton tailgating. I think that's part of the reason why 16,000 almost was reached. I think people really love doing that. Um, I guess for tailgating, a 7 o'clock game is pretty good because you can spend a lot of time
Right.
tailgating before the game. So they got that going on. And I mean, it's happening. They've got some excitement going on. The enthusiasm. I think the crowd was, the one thing you can say about Argo crowds, David, is that they're in there for the game. They're fans. You
Oh yeah.
know, and whether the fans of Argos or Hamilton in this case doesn't matter. They're football fans. So the excitement level at the game, the buzz that was going around the stadium, 16,000 people under normal circumstances, I don't think can generate that much excitement, but they do every week, no matter how few there are. The Argo fans that are there are very dedicated to their team, and they are contributing participants in the event. So it would be great if they had a musical group or something like that there where someone could say, why don't you come to the football game? Oh, and by the way, we're going to see a little bit of a concert. Guess who's going to play there? For a $25 ticket to go see someone like that, and you're getting a football game tossed in. I just don't see how that won't add more posteriors into the stadium.
Yeah.
Seating.
No, I totally agree. I think when you look at BC, they went and did that because they realized that they put the investment in, they're going to get that investment back. And now look, one other thing that the Argos did really well is they brought also some good alumni back. Right, they brought
Mhm.
Ricky Foley was there. He's a well known name to fans there. And they brought Damon Allen there too. Right, I mean Pinball's always there too. Um, so I do think you have to really consider um
Mookie
on
Mitchell too.
yeah, and look, and the CFL would do their, I don't know if you remember, but during the season they would do like their Thursday concert series.
Right.
The Argos have done that before. It's helped. It certainly does help, but yeah, you have to find ways because you wanted this to be a destination, right? A lot of people were saying the prices are pretty reasonable. That's a good thing.
Yes.
But you gotta do more. You have to find a way to do more and do things that haven't, potentially been done, you know, in the past.
Yeah, and I don't know if the cost is prohibitive. I don't know. Um, the Like you said, there has to be an investment, but I guess in many cases there has to be return. Let's talk. We can talk about maybe we'll talk about the Argo game first. So as I said at the top of the show, it was Chad Kelly's first start for the Toronto Argonauts, one that was well anticipated, and a lot of people, I'll say fans for the most part, who were hoping to see him, had a lot of blind faith in the success that he would have had. Um, the media was a little more speculative, a little more, unsure of what was going to happen. Looking at both views, would you agree with what the fans anticipated more than what the media anticipated? In other words, the experts maybe didn't throw their support behind the kid, but he certainly proved the fans to be. I think that he proved the fans to be correct that this guy's going to be a great quarterback in the Canadian Football League. After one game, I'm saying that. I understand it's one game.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was seeing tweets from media on somebody was saying, is Chad Kelly now a top three quarterback in the CFL after one game?
Yikes!
But then when you think of the grand scheme of things, it's just like, you know what, he might be, considering the quarterback play we saw in the first 2 weeks of the season, might not be that far off considering. So I do think, yeah, like there's it's just when you go into with such a big change and so someone with just an unproven track record, there you're gonna have those questions. And I mean, it's a good first impression, but now the hardest thing to do is manage expectations. Now there are expectations because there weren't expectations before. So
Really,
this is going to be the biggest challenge for the Argos and Chad Kelly, because we had no idea really what we were in for. And now teams are like, oh, okay, we are not taking this guy lightly, and it's not going to get easier. And I think he understands that. He wasn't patting himself on the back too much. We've seen players get a little too overzealous, and I think that. But the thing about the Argos is they have the right approach in that, all right, week one is done. Now we're on to week two, right? Like,
yeah. We heard the coach say when we before the game started, we said this is one game. Let's win game one. There's no game two. There's no game three. It's just game one. That's what Ryan Dinwiddie said, and the team um, far better prepared after this championship in game one than they were the last one. Very true. And even the one in 2012, 2013 wasn't a great season either. So what we've got now is we've got an organization here, at least administratively, in regards to putting together a football team. I think we're pretty secure in the knowledge that that's the case. And that speaks to the subject matter prior to this part of the conversation. I think the fans, when this team shows that they're very entertaining, which they were last night, and I do believe winning is attractive. In this town, winning also has become um, not unique, but you know, underexperienced for Toronto sports fans. So I think the Argos should capitalize on that and make sure people understand that you'll be entertained and the home team's going to give you a good reason to cheer for them. And that's what they did in my mind yesterday. That's what the quarterback did. And David, is he a top 3 quarterback in the Canadian Football League? Of course he can be, especially because he has all the abilities, all of them. He has the ability to pass. He has an arm like Caleros, like Adams, where it's compact, and he's very accurate with his throws. After one game, I know this is one game, but he also is very mobile. We saw him do it in the Grey Cup. Was that a unique moment for him? No, he did it a couple of times in the Grey Cup, and he did it again in game 1 in the second week of the Canadian Football League against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He extended drives because of his ability that his feet could move and elude defenders. And that's what's going to make him a top 3 quarterback. You can stand in the pocket and have a lot of fun and be a great quarterback in the Canadian Football League. But if you can stand in the pocket, if you can get out of the pocket, the next thing we've got to see that he can do, what I'm looking for from him, we didn't really see that much of it yesterday, but to see how he throws on the run. Because if he does that, David, he's going to be competing with a guy like Caleros, and he looked awesome on opposite sides of the field of Bo Levi Mitchell. Not a bad quarterback.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it also speaks to it's their quarterbacks have a really tough because they have to mentally be able to overcome mistakes. This is probably the one thing about Chad Kelly we don't know yet because he has not made a mistake. What is Chad Kelly like if he makes a mistake? And that's going to be the biggest question mark I think going forward because it was I wasn't easy on him. I'm not saying it was easy, but it wasn't overly difficult because they started off with a lead. Well, yeah, they started off with a lead, and then that makes it a little easier for a
22
quarterback
to
to
6.
settle
I
in.
think I think it was 22 to 6 the lead
Yeah,
they had at some point.
right. So it's a little easier. I think like yeah, they scored the touchdown. They made it 8-6, and then Hamilton responds to the touchdown, put a little pressure, and Kelly was able to march forward. I want to see what happens if it doesn't go well to start, and then the defense isn't able to bail them out. Again, I think it's something that wasn't really talked about, and Kelly made sure to talk about it, and Dinwiddie made sure to talk about it. But the defense bailing out the offense when they weren't hitting on all cylinders at the start and in that third quarter.
When I look at the statistics, so if you're a person that likes looking at statistics, and I'll just throw a couple out to you folks. This was not a game that, if you look at the stats, Hamilton had 20 first downs, Toronto had 22. I'm just going to mention these just to create a point here. Hamilton had 340 total yards. The Argos had 323. Per play, Hamilton 5.7, Toronto 6.7. Passing yards, Hamilton 273, Toronto 213. Toronto had them in rushing yards, 110 to 67, and Toronto also had more penalties, 9 for 74. And they don't have here the possession time. But here is the statistic that you referred to, and I believe in this thoroughly. 2 turnovers for Hamilton, none for Toronto. So you see, you can churn up a lot of yardage. You can go up and down the field. But if you make a mistake at the wrong time, I mean, I watched the game between BC and Edmonton, and boy, that should be in the dictionary and how to lose, you know.
Mhm.
And the Argos didn't do that. Hamilton played really well for a time, but didn't, the mistakes, unfortunately, as you point out, are what hurt you. And then their number one quarterback gets injured. But here's the thing: the number two quarterback played better than the number one quarterback, which is why the stats look as skewed in favor of Hamilton in some ways to give the impression that they should have won. But they never were in the game. They were never in the game.
And just to give you, I know you were looking for the time of possession. It was Hamilton at 32-20, Argos 26-04.
There you go. That makes the point again that Hamilton had the ball. They just
Especially in
didn't do
that
enough
fourth
with it.
quarter, they had the ball a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah, and people call that garbage time, and then
Yeah.
there's stats that get that fatten because a team is well ahead, and the team's allowing the team that's behind to do a little catch up, just not pass them. That's all. Yeah, so I really I got to say it was a good game. It was entertaining. Um, I got to say that Hamilton Hamilton looks like a team that is in the middle of rebuilding. I
Retooling.
say, yeah, retooling. The problem with Hamilton, and I don't want to irk or anger Hamilton Tiger Cat fans, but their big guys weren't playing big. Simone Lawrence didn't do very much. We know, what Bo Levi Mitchell did, and if you want to win in the Canadian football, your star players have to do something.
Mhm.
We watched the Argos. Uh, we watched them start kind of slowly, but then Willette, for example, as a perfect example, he started slowly, but then he started to get the season under his feet and he started to really move really well. And then you've got Harris as well. So, they did what they needed to do for the Argos. I think Hamilton failed because their star players didn't play like stars.
Yeah, I mean the best player on the field for Hamilton, I think, on defense was Tunde Adeleke.
Yeah.
Simone Lawrence, you want to guess how many tackles he had in that game?
Okay, I'll guess two.
One.
Oh, I overplayed him.
You know,
That's not Simone Lawrence.
that's not.
If Simone Lawrence is only making one tackle, Hamilton needs more than that from him.
Yeah, no, they do. And also, um, but not only him, but I mean on offense too. Like, what the big surprise I
Oh,
think for me was, Duke Williams was their top receiver, especially early on when their but their second leading receiver was Butler, the running back,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Now I'll
Jake
give you
Butler.
I'll give you this. The Argos, if you look at their numbers too, like there was a lot left. I think there was a lot left on the table from that offense, offensive performance through the air. But it's the way that the Argos were able to kind of distribute things a little bit. For Hamilton, yeah, it was also a little too much too late. I still think it's those two turnovers, interceptions in the end zone.
Mm,
Those are
killer,
killer. Like,
killer,
turning the
killer.
ball over is one thing. It's the time that you turn the ball over and where you turn it over. Two interceptions in the end zone. That's that's the game. That was the game right there, in my opinion. Because if you get even one of those to flip, you might have flipped the game a little bit there. But the two for sure, that sunk Hamilton in a big way. And yeah, their best players, you said, are not playing like their best players right now.
Edwards, former Argo, was trying really hard to get under the skin of the Argo players.
Yeah, no,
It
and
didn't work.
no, it didn't work. It's weird, a little weird seeing him in Hamilton colors. I'll admit that as somebody who's talked to Chris Edwards, has seen him, only in blue. It was a little weird seeing him in a different color, but um, the penalties for me for Hamilton were like Toronto took penalties, not many undisciplined penalties, but just like careless mistakes on Toronto's part. For Hamilton, they were dumb penalties. Like, I call them dumb penalties because they're avoidable. A face mask,
Or unnecessary.
unnecessary too. A face mask that negates a sack, and the Argos go and they score on the play. I think there was one on a return where they got an extra 15 yards tacked on, and it pretty much set up Toronto into a scoring position. There was a like things like that. Like, if you're not able to overcome those, it's gonna be a long season for Hamilton. Like, if I'm Orlando Steinauer, he is probably fuming at some of these penalties that are being taken for sure.
Yeah. Discipline is very important. We know from last season that a season can hinge on lack of discipline. I love recounting this story because I think it tells it like it is. The Saskatchewan and Toronto both were imploding a little bit at the same time. One team figured it out and decided, we're not going to stay on this road. We're going to calm the sideline down and calm the way we play on the field to be more dedicated to the right kind of execution, not distraction. Unfortunately for Saskatchewan, it just got worse. So, my point being that Hamilton, what we're saying right now could be very true, but what can be true is the Saskatchewan or the Argo experience where they find their discipline. This is where the leaders come in again. This is another thing that the leaders on the team, and this is the coaching staff too, they're in on this too. where discipline has to be achieved. You cannot give the opposition any advantages in football, because those advantages usually happen at the most inopportune times and lead to points. So they just can't do that. So that's one of the things I guess we're both agreeing, that Hamilton has to be more disciplined. To review what we've said, their star players need to be stars. What else? What else do you think Hamilton could have done better?
What could they have done better? Well, the turnovers are one. Like, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough. I think they ran the ball quite a bit, so I can't say they gotta get the ball to Levi Mitchell's hands, because they certainly did that. Um, but what they were missing for me? They didn't have that big play. Their longest play from scrimmage was an 18-yard pass. The Argos
Yeah.
had a 59-yarder, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. No, they did. They did.
Right? The
I just saw
Hamilton
that.
didn't have that big offensive play that I feel like there's like the Argos didn't really weren't really threatened by that. They didn't have to worry about that big shot down the field from Levi Mitchell that we've been accustomed to seeing. And that, to me, that's you're limiting your offense if you're not putting that out there.
And the next thing that they didn't do well is Bo Levi Mitchell didn't grasp the playbook as well as he needs to. He's already said at the beginning of the season, I think he was saying that he needed they were arguing amongst themselves of what he meant. Apparently, he either meant 2 games, 2 weeks, or 2 months to be able to digest, the playbook so that he can be more effective. He has to be on that learning curve. And I would hope, as most Hamilton Tiger Cat fans and the coaching staff hopes, that he really that learning curve is a short and upright one as quickly as possible, because this Canadian Football League season won't be over quickly for them, because we saw from their experience last year they came from well behind to make the playoffs. But do they want to tempt that fate again? I mean, you've got two teams in Ottawa and Montreal. I think Ottawa's defense, if they can find a quarterback to throw some offense, Hamilton has to worry. So my point is that Hamilton can't afford to spin their wheels this year like they did last year.
No, they can't. I mean, I guess they're fortunate that maybe they feel like there is that position where, yeah, they start the season 0-2, but they started. Pretty sure they were 0-5 to start the season last year, 0-4 to start the season. I don't know how many teams expect. Like, it's not just making the playoffs, but we've seen how important it is to have that home field advantage in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
And that'll be the biggest issue for Hamilton if they find a way, and let's be honest here, they found a way to turn things around late in the season, but if they had a better start, they might have been able to win the East. And so, like, you miss those opportunities, you kick yourself a lot, right? People say,
Absolutely.
how was Winnipeg able to go to the Grey Cup so many times? It helps when you win your division, right? And you're able to have that home playoff
And
game.
you build up your confidence. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the other thing, right? That the more consistently you play well, the more you can look forward to and believe in playing well. So, that's at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So the Argos win 32-14. Their quarterback did a great job. He looks good. He looks like the kind of guy that is suited for the Canadian Football League game. We saw a couple of defenders stand out. I was impressed with Pickett. He's been around for 3 years, but he hasn't been central to the defense of this Canadian Football League, the team Toronto Argonauts. But man, he was impressive, and we know that Amos got an interception as well, so they both had interceptions. The defense did bend, but did not break. I was very impressed with the Argo defense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it continues to be it continues to be the story for them. You know, their defense, they're gonna, and there's I think they're still trying to get things together, right? They're missing some players too on that defense. Jamal
The
Peters
captain,
wasn't playing.
the
You know,
captain.
Enoch Mwamba, as you mentioned, there wasn't in the wasn't there, and he's probably gonna be out for a bit too. Um, yeah, there's gonna be a lot to digest there. I think over the next few weeks. In terms of getting new players acclimated and see where this defense can make the necessary adjustments.
Absolutely. So the Argos win 32-14. Let's go to game one on Thursday. That featured Calgary in Ottawa. Calgary won 26-15. Calgary had something to prove. At least their quarterback had something to prove. Um, you know, we know that the mayor, Jake Mayer, um, was good enough for Calgary to set their twice MVP aside in Bo Levi Mitchell and send him to Hamilton. Um, but Jake hasn't looked, that uh, up until this game. In this game, though, he completed 22 of 33, David, and had 332 yards against, I think we both agree, a pretty good defense.
Yeah, I mean, he needed that game a little bit. Like the first game of the season, he didn't look like a starting quarterback in my opinion. He looked like a guy that's kind of a little timid and trying to get himself into the game a little bit here. And I think the biggest difference was the players who didn't have a good week last week. I'm looking at Reggie Bagleton and Blake Henry.
Yep.
It was a big turnaround performance for them. They really
141 for Beggleton in yards.
right. Like
Yeah.
we haven't like that. There's a reason why they don't have the depth as much because they're paying these guys quite a bit. Reggie Bagleton that's a costly player there for them. And I think the other thing that happened, I mean, I thought they were going to be there was going to be an issue, with their running game because they're dealing with injuries there,
Uh,
and that didn't appear to be an issue, right?
Mills came through for him.
Right, and I think that's the big one there. Like Kadeem Carey was one of the better running backs in the CFL last year, and I thought with him being out that was going to be an issue. But this is where Calgary is at their best when they can get the running game going. So then their passing game is less predictable. Now you have to respect the run a little bit more, and that I credit Coach Dave Dickinson for making those adjustments. Whatever adjustments they were making, also the adjustments that you know the offense made. Like, yeah, you said that's a good Ottawa team, a good Ottawa defense. Offensively, I think they put too much pressure on their defense to have to carry the load. Again, that's going to be, I think, a theme for them this season.
Oh, yeah. And Arbuckle was a disappointment again, not really being effective. And that meant Adams was brought in. He looked okay. He looked better than what Arbuckle looked. I don't know if there's another game yet without Mazzoli, or does Mazzoli come in? They were saying 2 games. He'd need 2 games. I have so much respect for Mazzoli. I think he's a really good quarterback. Neither of these two, one lacks the experience that Mazzoli has. I'd give Arbuckle a little bit on the experience side. But on the successful and leadership side, Arbuckle tends to not really do a good job, and he hasn't found his leadership ability as a quarterback, which I think Mazzoli can bring. And I think this team will be totally different with Mazzoli at the controls. I really believe that, David. I have a lot of faith in Mazzoli. The issue with Mazzoli, and it's become history repeating itself, is his health. That's my major concern with him, is him being healthy. I know he has the ability, and I have a lot of faith in him at the controls of the Ottawa offense.
Yeah, but you also need him to be there. Quarterbacks,
That's the best ability anybody can have,
yeah,
availability.
exactly. So I'm that's got to be the most concerning thing if you're, the Redbacks coaching staff. But it's also what we've harped on is you need that second guy. You need that second guy in the CFL, especially if you're dealing with a quarterback who has an injury past, right? There's a reason why Hamilton kept Matthew Schultz around.
It's going to be a smart move.
Yeah, it's going to be a smart move, and
I
I
like
thought
him.
maybe he would have been primed to get a bump in a role with another team like Ottawa, or because like if you're a backup quarterback going to Ottawa, there's a really high chance you're going to play, whether you want to accept that or not. So yeah, I think if you're Ottawa, you have to hope that Mazzoli is close to coming back, because I don't have confidence in these other quarterbacks to really you know pull them out of it, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
Arbuckle's had 2 games to try and show what he can do, and he just has not been able to move the team on a consistent basis and move the team without throwing an interception. I talk about this every year and every game. Interceptions are the reason why quarterbacks aren't successful. They need to not throw them, and as far as Arbuckle's concerned, sometimes he throws them because it seems to me that he's throwing a Hail Mary up for no reason. His passes do not have, in my opinion, the kind of intent they should have, the intent that you have in the normal course of a game. I understand that it changes when you're desperate, but you can't be desperate in the middle of the game. That's football's a great sport that you build on play after play after play. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It's what you do, on a consistent basis. And they're searching really hard, Ottawa, you know, for something. They've been doing that for the last couple of years since Mazzoli got hurt last year. And they're a total I think they're a totally different team if they have a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. How many teams I mean, can we say that for now? That's the unfortunate part.
Everyone, everyone, everyone. I mean, it's not even there's different levels of quarterback success, right? And you've said it already during this program. A quarterback could lose you the game because of throwing interceptions, or receivers can not catch the ball, like we've seen this weekend. We can talk about that later about some other games. And what you said, some of the receivers that are impactful and running backs that are impactful, they can help the quarterback look better too.
Mhm.
But some of it has to work to help all of it to work, right? When none of it's working on a team, like if you have no offense, no defense, no special teams, no receiving, no running, yeah, you know what you're going to do. You're going to lose every day. So you need a building block, and to me, the quarterback is the main building block. If he can pass, that means the team can run. If he can pass, the team can catch, right? If he can pass, the defense is not with their backs to the goalposts, right? So that's why a quarterback is so important in my eyes.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Hopefully, they can do something. So Ottawa loses to Calgary. Calgary doesn't look as tough as they did in the exhibition season. They look like they're not 100% as invincible as we may have thought earlier. But Calgary did win 26-15, and Meyer is the reason why that team can get better. They rely on him very much. The next game I want to talk about, we only got a few minutes left, so hopefully we'll get into this one as well, and that is the Winnipeg Saskatchewan game. Winnipeg won 45-27. You want to talk about a team playing angry and looking like they want to go to the Grey Cup tomorrow. They're not waiting until November. They're going to go there tomorrow the way they're playing.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable how unbalanced that game was, in my opinion. Like one of the two blowouts from the West Division games this week. Like I don't even know where to start with that domination. Like it's crazy just how much the narrative has changed going into this season for this team, for sure.
They have something to prove to themselves. This is what you're looking at here. You're looking at a team that knows how good they are, and they are intent on getting to the top of the mountain again. But I got to say, David, Trevor Harrison Company, the offense of Saskatchewan. I talked to a few friends of mine in Saskatchewan, and they were happy with the offense. They were surprised that the offense played as well as they did. because they know what kind of defense Winnipeg offers. So the offense that they showed they could do is under that microscope, right? And it's clear that they had a pretty good offense. Their defense wasn't bad either, but this was less about Saskatchewan playing poorly. It was more about Winnipeg. Wow, like watching that game, it was like uh, immovable object.
Well, let's talk about the play, and that in my opinion that changed the game.
Right.
Jagarian Grant, a 92-yard punt return.
Oh,
That changed because
that was
Saskatchewan,
called back. That was called back.
right? That, but to me, even though it was called back, or it was under review and stuff like that, it still was a game changing play because I thought Saskatchewan they were right in it.
Yep,
They were
they
right
were.
in there, and you know it just seemed to snowball at the end there for Saskatchewan. And that's the unfortunate part because you went toe to toe with them in the first half. You kept it close. I think they're only down by 3 going into the half. And then, third quarter they still kept it close, and then the fourth quarter it was no contest. And to me, that like you get those opportunities to go up against a team like Winnipeg where you know you're going up against the best quarterback in the league. Your quarterback, your big acquisition, has his best game, throws for over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, but it was the defense of Saskatchewan that kind of let them down. Penalties too, they had 6 penalties in the game. Turnovers were equal, right? So you couldn't even say the penalties were an issue. I just think the defense, you allow 6 touchdowns. That's not the Saskatchewan defense we've come to know. And that right there, that's something that's going to have to be cleaned up because I thought the defense was really good the week before. There were a lot of
Goal
questions
line,
about whether
goal
Trevor
line
Harris could even.
stand.
I thought there was going to be more pressure on the defense because Trevor Harris's status was in doubt because of a hip pointer. He was
Oh, he wanted to play.
he gave them every chance to win that game, except they couldn't get the stops on defense.
But let's be clear here. You have one team last year that played in the Grey Cup after winning 2 of them back to back, and you had another team that didn't make the playoffs. And this is game 2 of the season. So this was a great opportunity for Saskatchewan in my mind to get a real idea of where they stand this season, what they need to improve, what they need to do to win important games against tough competition. They also learned, I think the most important thing they learned, I think this is a Saskatchewan team and a fan base that believes in the guy that's their quarterback, because last year ended with a lot of big questions. And I said earlier how important quarterbacks are. Trevor Harris, if the defense comes through for Saskatchewan, if they understand the extent of improvement they need to make, and the organization itself, whether it be the defensive coordinator, all the defensive coaches, and the players themselves understand how good they have to be to win, this game will be a good lesson for them. I see a lot of hope, and I got that impression from the Rider fans that they're very hopeful in that game because they respect the opponent.
Yeah, I think that's the big one there, respecting your opponent, but not letting but staying within the game and not letting moments kind of sway you one way or the other in my opinion too.
Absolutely.
Final minute. I guess we
You
have one
get the
more game.
last say, buddy.
Well, I'll just say in the final game, I mean, Edmonton BC looks legit. Edmonton, that might have been the worst performance I've ever seen from a CFL team in a game. The net offense from that game, 416 for BC, 139 for Edmonton.
BC's been playing since 1954. That's the third time they've shut out a team. One of them was the Argonauts as well.
If I'm Edmonton, if this doesn't turn around fast, there's going to be a lot of unhappy Elks fans who are
Absolutely.
tired of the. They thought the Chris Jones era was going to bring them back to prominence, and it's done. If anything, they have taken more steps back than they've taken forward.
And he still stands behind his quarterback. A lot of drop balls. That was a game that BC played really well, and one that, as you said, Edmonton was totally ineffective. Well, that's who the Argos are going to meet next, so that'll be a great challenge for them to be up for that game.
No, for sure.
Thanks for doing this, David.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, for David Morassutti, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. And don't forget to check out Candid Frank Stanisci 1030 on YouTube. Subscribe and enjoy the programming we put together. I'm Candid Frank.